Meet your hosts, two CEOs making a difference, Dr. Stephanie Wall and Hope Jackson. Her story, our story, 1 hour of power. Did you know there's a huge disconnect between what we want and what we go after? As women, sometimes we feel unfulfilled and confused about our purpose. And these are just some of the reasons why we created Her Story, Our Story, 1 hour of power, so that we could connect with other like-minded women from all over the world. So if you are ready to finally feel empowered enough to change your life, come on and join us at Her Story, Our Story. Do you have a story of transformation, of empowerment, of change, of growth? We would love to interview you. Be our guest on Her Story, Our Story, 1 hour of power. Welcome to Her Story, Our Story, 1 hour of power. Dr. Stephanie Wall here, your transformation artist. Listen, artist, architect. We build things. Y'all know fire. So listen, you know Hope is not here because Hope has now moved. She's moved. I don't think she minds me telling. But Hope has moved to North Carolina, to Charlotte. So she's in the middle of a move, but she said, don't y'all count her out. Don't count her out because she's still with us. So tonight, I'm super excited. So those of you that are watching live on LinkedIn, hello. Those of you that are watching live on 1 Million Lives Transformed in the on the page, hey. And those of you that are watching live on YouTube, come on into the room, as Tabitha Brown says. So listen, tonight we have Dr. Evelyn Bethune, and I have a little special little clip that I want to share with you before I bring it to the stage, because see, you know, we do our due diligence, we go do a little research, and I loved this thing that I saw the news channel doing about her grandmother. Put my glasses on so I could see what's going on, and I will show you what it is. That y'all give me grace, because you know sometimes I carry on when I'm trying to show you something on the screen. So hold tight. I'm going to show you here we go.
A new statue unveiled today at the U.S. Capitol marks a historic first. Civil rights pioneer Mary McLeod Bethune is the first Black American to represent a state in Statuary Hall. Congressional leaders celebrated the unveiling and Bethune's legacy.
How poetic that Dr. Bethune replaces a little-known Confederate general trading a traitor for a civil rights hero in the capital of the United States.
Dr. Bethune wasn't just a great Floridian. She was a great American. An American who refused to accept that her humble beginnings or the color of her skin were a limit on her dreams and on her destiny. And an American who, in the face of the ignorance, the cruelty, and the prejudice of others, she refused to surrender to bitterness or cynicism or despair.
Lisa Desjardins has more on the unveiling.
Each state has 2 statues representing them in the U.S. Capitol. Florida lawmakers voted to remove one of theirs, a statue representing a Confederate general, and replace it with a statue of Bethune. Joining me now is her granddaughter, Evelyn Bethune. And Evelyn, your grandmother is especially known for her pioneering and relentless work in education. That's why she is depicted in the U.S. Capitol as wearing a cap and gown. In fact, she created what would become Bethune-Cookman University, starting with just $1.50. It ultimately became a historically Black university. Tell us more about what she did.
Well, I think the key element is to know that In order for her to found the school, she had to be a great organizer and fundraiser. Bethune-Cookman University sits on what was the city garbage dump, which was the only land they would give her, let her purchase during that time period. Because, women weren't really allowed, women, black or white, were not allowed to vote, make decisions, buy property or anything unless a man gave them permission or assisted them. And so for her to acquire this property for $250 and work out a deal because she only had $1.50 was quite amazing for that time period. But my grandmother took those skills and she built relationships with people like the Roosevelts. And she made sure that she was able to organize communities and people to vote once the vote was given to women. She registered women to vote across this country. She founded the National Council of Negro Women, which is an organization that was made up of women in leadership in the organizations within their communities. And at one point, they had over 5 million women in their membership. That's a huge voting block. And with that carries a lot of power.
We met earlier today at Statuary Hall ahead of the unveiling of this statue, and that's a very special place. It is also a place where there are still statues representing Confederates. And I just wonder what it was like for you, that moment when her statue was unveiled, looking in that place, what you think that meant for the Capitol and for our country.
For us as a family, it is a position of pride that's very humbling when we think of our grandmother, our descendant, being a part of Statuary Hall. The fact that there are Confederate soldiers there is, very interesting to me since they lost the war. And, it speaks volumes in terms of the thinking of the people who placed it there, how they still hold on to the tenets of, enslavement and unequal access. My grandmother is a reminder of the good that comes when we share power, when we give access to everyone, and when we make voting accessible to everyone easily, and not make it so difficult that you can't get registered, you can't get to the polls. And that's not what this country is about. This country is about freedom.
It's interesting you talk about the power of representation in this country. And it was the Florida legislature that decided your grandmother was the one to represent the state, to change the image it presented at the Capitol. But we also know in recent months, the Florida legislature and governor have decided that they want to limit what teachers can actually say in classrooms about race and about our history of race. And I wonder what you think that means in general for society, but also for your grandmother's place in history.
Well, my grandmother's place in history is solid. There is very little that they can do to change her accomplishments unless we sit back and allow that to happen, which is not going to happen. It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, we want to have freedom of speech and freedom to carry weapons, but on the other, we don't want to give you the ability to talk about the history of enslavement, because if we don't talk about it, we will try to repeat it. And Americans who relish and cherish freedom have to stand up and vote and remove people from office who think that we should go back to Jim Crow in the 1920s.
Evelyn Bethune, thank you so much for sharing with us what you know about your grandmother.
You're welcome.
Well, wasn't that amazing? So listen, now my guest, I want to make sure that because I know she's having some difficulties with her camera there. Dr. Evelyn, are you back here? All right, so now I'm going to bring the lady of the hour up right now. So listen, wherever you are, and even if you are coming in and you're watching the replay later, you can send your comments forward. But right now, those of you that are watching right now, post your comments and we will try our best to answer them. But coming to the stage is Dr. Evelyn Bethune. Look, Fire. Come on, Dr. Evelyn.
I just love you. You are just such an inspiration to me.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for your yes.
Oh gosh, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Can I tell you, when I found that news story, I was like, what? Now, Dr. Evelyn, you've been on these calls, and I said, I didn't, first of all, you up on my part of town, and that was just amazing. How'd you feel?
Well, my grandmother was an amazing woman. The things that she did were far beyond and far ahead of her time and space. She was a forward thinker, but she truly believed that God created her that way for the purpose that he placed her in, and that he gave her and would continue to give her whatever resources she need to do what he directed her to do. And so she didn't hesitate. She didn't question God. She didn't sit and mull over it. She didn't, find somebody have to ask 50,000 people before she made a decision or made a move. She didn't wait for somebody else to say it was okay. She didn't wait for somebody to open the door. She didn't do any of that. She moved forward. And because of that, she has a statue in Statuary Hall. My great-grandparents were slaves in this country. But they placed the spirit in her that said people can put shackles on your feet, but they can't shackle your mind unless you let them.
Come on, Dr. Evelyn. Let me tell you something. As I was listening to it, I said, one, they sold us some land. I'm still on that. Two, okay, we're just going to give you, you're going to say this land that was a trash dump. See? You thought you was doing something.
Hey.
And then this human being took you. That's the ultimate. Took something and made some lemons and made lemonade.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I'm sitting there like, what is your excuse?
We don't have one. And that is one of the things that I say to people, and our young people in particular. But see, our young people got a different mindset. They can take, a piece of cardboard and make a statue. They are very creative, and they are not willing to be stopped. No doesn't mean no to them. It means find another way.
That's right.
For us, we got to a point in our history where we got comfortable because we thought because they allowed us through the door that we now had some equal ground. No, ma'am. If you don't own the door, they can take it back whenever they get ready.
Come on, Dr. Evelyn. See, Dr. Evelyn, y'all ain't ready. Listen, those that are watching it right now, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go ahead right now. One, drop in the chat, drop somewhere so we can see it, where you are viewing this from, number one. Number two, share this out with two friends. Call somebody up, send them on Facebook, put it out there. Share it on your page so that it's live and they can see it. Tell the people they don't want to miss it. They don't want to miss this. If I was your friend and you ain't telling me, I'll be feeling some kind of way. So pretty much. But this is what I want you to do, because every guest that comes on here, Dr. Evelyn, we ask them what is their 5-word story. But before we do that, we also ask them something else. If you could go like right now, today, without worrying about what you got to do and what's on your to-do list and all this, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would it be? Would it be somewhere in the mountains? Would it be somewhere cold? Which I think I know the answer to that one. Would it be somewhere on a beach? Would it be somewhere in solitude? Would it be like somewhere like Thailand? Where would it be? Where would you go?
Listen, the drums of Africa still beat in my heart. And I would sincerely be in Senegal or Ghana, where I could look at my folks every single day and feel their energy and wake up looking at people that look like me without having to deal with stupidity. It's a different energy, a different feeling. And I have felt such a different energy when you step off the plane in the motherland. It's just a different kind of feeling. Of course, there are problems, there are issues, But just remember, they took 100 million of us off of the continent. We came to various places and built cities. We built countries. We made folks rich. Suppose that energy had been able to be utilized in our homeland. What might the result be today?
That's powerful. Now, sadly, it's on my list. And of course, COVID stopped. The pandemic slowed down everybody, but it slowed me down
yes.
because it was on my list. It was right there. I was right there because I've never been to Africa.
It's an amazing place.
So,
and people, Americans in particular, especially Black Americans, we've been given such a crazy picture of what Africa is like. Africa, I tell people, remember, Africa is a continent, it's not a country. And it's a huge, huge place, very diverse and different cultures. But what you find are people who, even the poorest, have a drive and a joy in their spirit that you just don't find everywhere.
I'm going to come back. So hold that, because I have questions about that, because I'm very interested. But I also want you to tell me, what is your 6-word story? And then I want you to tell me, what does that 6-word story mean?
My 6-word story is that every sunrise brings new opportunity. And for me, that means that no matter how dark, difficult, scary it may be right now, this minute, the sun is going to come up in the morning because God controls that. And if we can just hold on and get to the sunrise, we will be okay. Many times we give up before we get to the sunrise. And that's where our blessing lies. And so for me, my struggles have been, I'm pretty outspoken, as you can tell. And because of that, sometimes I've been standing alone. And you talk about throwing shade. People have tried to take my life. And so I have to always remember who's really in charge and that it's not them. And the sunrise reminds me of that every single day, that God is in control. So as long as I remember that, I'm okay.
Ooh, now I'm over here writing, because we might go about 5 minutes or so, but no, we can't go. We got somewhere to go. All right, but wait a minute. So tell me, everybody has a story. We talk about it, right? I have a story. You have a story. And we've heard it said many different ways, but I love all of them, actually. But what I like the most, it says, if you have medication that can help me relieve a pain that I have, meaning your story. If I have a headache and you have an aspirin, you give it to me.
Absolutely.
So what is your story that only you've been through, or many people, maybe at one time you thought only you've been through it, or that other people think they're the only ones, but they would be amazed to know that is your story? Tell me a little bit about you.
Well, I think that people, and most times they are amazed. I, have been incarcerated. I've had difficulties as it relates to standing in my grandmother's shadow. We grew up in her shadow. We, as children, there are 5 grandchildren. My dad was Dr. Bethune's only child. And so when we were growing up, our name was Dr. Bethune's grandchildren. We didn't have a name. That was it. And it's wonderful, but it's also not wonderful when you're just trying to live your life. And because I am very outspoken about issues that relate to my people and my community, I have sometimes made some very powerful enemies who have come after me. But once again, I'm not scared. And I'm not scared because I truly believe that whatever someone thinks they can take from me, God can return it and multiply it exponentially. And so I continue to do what I do in spite of, and will continue to do so until I have no breath, because I truly understand my assignment.
You know, I'm over here taking copious notes. Now, let me tell you right now. Now, you all, let me just tell you, Dr. Bethune and I have had the pleasure. She and I, we served together. We are doing life together, but yet apart, right?
Yes.
I'm on the phone. So those of you that are in my circle, in my tribe, you know I'm on a morning call, business call every morning, Monday
Yes,
to
we
Friday
are.
at 6:30 my time, which is 5:30 Dr. Evelyn's time. And every morning, and I'm going with Dr. Evelyn. So we are it's literally this morning I said to her, see you tonight. You know, literally.
You did.
So of course it is when you said two things, it just hurt my heart. Just like instantly I'm mad. One, that people try to take your life.
Absolutely.
And especially three things. And then the third, I'm like, now Dr. Evelyn, no, I was Dr. Evelyn been incarcerated. Now this I got to hear. Look, and I can't even imagine it. No kind of way, no shape or form.
Well, I couldn't either, and it was a really scary moment. It was more than a moment. It was 10 months. And but see, I say this all the time. When you keep God in your spirit, God will protect you. I don't care where you are, and He will. I went into a situation that I had never experienced, with people that surely I didn't know what I would come in contact with. But the God that I serve said, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to keep serving me. And my presence changed the energy field of where I was, because a lot of things that could have happened to me didn't. People that could have injured me didn't. In fact, became my friends and made sure that I was okay, because God will send your protector in various forms. It's not going to always be in a business suit. Sometimes it's going to be an inmate that's bigger than you, has been an inmate for a long time, and knows the ropes and says, don't worry, I got you. And mean it. And then allow me to pray with them because they have children. I have done prison ministry. I had no idea how many of our sisters are incarcerated in the state of Florida. It is frightening, the number of women that are incarcerated. Women who have children, women who don't get to see their children, and in a penal system that is not restorative. That system is put in place to break people. And during my incarceration, inmates were killed. One woman, and they weren't killed by inmates, they were killed by guards who were supposed to be their protectors. And those guards were still on duty and have just recently lost their jobs and face charges. And so when we're talking about how we do things in this country, prison reform is one of the things that need to be at the top of our list, because there are millions of people incarcerated, Black, white, brown people, all kinds of people from all walks of life and at all levels of understanding. And at some point they are coming back, and yet we're not educating them. We're not providing the necessary tools. Many of those people can't read and write. And we're in 2022 in America. This is insanity.
What then, if you don't mind me asking you now, if you don't mind, and you can say,
No, go ahead. You know, I'm
in
an
the
open
world.
book.
So, good. So How did you end up, Dr. Evelyn Bethune, in a place where you actually went in there because you were a change agent? I could see it. One, you have a voice that just will soothe the soul, and hard to match it. So how, if you don't mind sharing,
No,
why
not at all.
did you end up incarcerated?
First of all, I trusted the wrong thing and people. And I got caught up in a situation where I started using money that was not mine, thinking, of course, okay, I'll use this and I'll replace it. And life happens. And then you discover that you can't fix what you broke. And even when people have agreements with you and it's okay, all of a sudden it's not okay because they decided that they don't like you anymore. And when you are in a political arena, and in this, let me just tell you, in the state of Florida, people make their careers on what they feel are high newsworthy prosecutions. And someone said to me, if your name was anything other than what it is, we would not be standing here right now. You'd be at home. And I thought about that because I had not thought about it that way. They said, listen, we see stuff come through here all the time that is not nearly, people get less time for killing somebody than what they're trying to do to you right now.
As soon as as you said, I was like, and my first thought was, and your name is Bethune.
Yes,
Not
ma'am.
just your
And
name.
that was the lead of the story.
Granddaughter of. Oh,
That's exactly, that was the headline. That was the headline. And my attorney kept saying to me, he said, I don't understand what's happening here. I said, well, let me help you out. He said, because the state attorney doesn't even want to discuss anything that does not have jail time. He said, and this is not that kind of story. So he said, so I'm really not understanding. He said, plus the fact you're made restitution. And usually that takes care of it. He said, but there is something else happening here. And every time we would go to court, somehow the news cameras always knew everything. And they would be outside the courtroom. They would be in the parking lot. You would have thought that I was shooting people from the tower.
These people that are trying to take your life, is this a part of your ministry? Is this part of the conversation you had based on things you've observed?
Absolutely.
While you were through the penal system?
No. Most of my life, I have been, as they would say, cutting edge. When I see something that I know is not right, I say something. And I usually say it in a very public manner. And I tell people, if you don't want to know, don't ask me. Because the one thing that I know is that truth will stand. I don't care what. And it may take 100 years, but it will stand. And I will stand. If you think that you're going to do one thing over here for somebody else, but then my little black boys and girls over here, you're going to treat them crazy and I'm not going to speak about it, you're mistaken. When I was at the University of Florida, it was the same way. I was director for the Institute of Black Culture, as well as a graduate student. I was working on my PhD. And they had no budget. I said, how do you have an institute within a university with 50,000 students and they don't have a budget, but the house next to us has all kinds of stuff going on? And the president of the university used to tell me all the time, he said, I don't know who your press agent is, but you got better press than me. And he would laugh about it. But every time he went to anything that had to do with diversity or the unequal rules of the university, he would always make sure that I was in the room. But because of that, people, and some look like me, took issue with that because it also revealed that they had been sitting there for years in positions of power and not saying anything.
Why do you think that was?
Because they like the chair. You know, people, I tell people sometimes they sit down in the chair and it sucks their brain out. There are times when we are our worst enemy.
So they like the title. So is this the case
Yes.
of like some people being the first,
Yes.
but they're not willing to be the last?
No, ma'am. They don't want to stir up the
They don't
water.
want to stir the pot. I'm sorry, they're good with being the last. I'm sorry. They're good with
Right.
being the last. They're not
Right.
even interested in making sure they're not the last. That's what I mean.
And they are more disruptive of our community than they would be with someone else.
That's a good segue into this because I do want to ask you. So, and I know we got off the topic, but your story is one that nobody would ever guess that. This
I
you
know.
go back to we don't look like what we are going.
No,
through.
ma'am. Thank you, Jesus.
And
Okay.
not at all. And so I want to know, how was it to be? Now we know everybody. Well, not everybody, but many people live in the shadows of a
Mhm.
sibling.
Yes.
Live in the shadow. I mean, my husband and I, Kurt and I, have with 3 adult sons,
Mm-hmm.
and one of our sons, and we both we retired from the local police department, and one of our sons we were like, well, we were like, you want to get out the Air Force? You want to work for the police department?
Mm-hmm.
And his exact words, because he's the namesake,
Yes.
Kurt Jr., KJ. He knows. We tell the story all the time. He was like, Dad, I don't want to live in your shadow.
It's hard.
I have your name. I know the expectations.
Mhm.
And we were like, what? You have your own. We were like going, cuckoo, look, son,
Like-
you are you. But he was like, no. I look like you. I walk like you. I'm the same
And
man.
people see you when they see me.
Exactly. And so tell me, I could, when you, let me back it up. And when I lateral from one agency to where my husband works, we actually worked in the same police agency
Wow.
for like the first year. I mean, we work on the same platoon, but different areas.
Oh my goodness.
They literally would say, "Oh, that's Kurt's wife." Oh,
You
Kurt's
did not
wife.
have a name.
And I mean, this went on for like months. To finally one day, I was like, "Do you know what my name is? You know, my name is Stephanie." I said, well, maybe they don't know my name. And I mean, honestly, we joke about it now. Now that we're no longer there, and where I'm living, he said people tell him now, "Oh, you Stephanie's husband." but I get that because I was living in his shadow. But what I'd like to know is, how was it to live in the shadow of? Come on now, Mary McLeod Bethune.
She was, and we grew up on the campus of Bethune-Cookman. We grew up in Daytona Beach. Our house was across the street from her house. And I'm old enough that I spent time with my grandmother. I was a child. I was like 3 when she passed. But I remember being around her. And there were always people in and out of our house, all kinds of people at all levels and all times of the day, the night. We were always busy. I remember Jackie Robinson coming to our house when I was
Wait. Jackie Robinson.
Listen, Jackie Robinson, Sugar Ray, who was a boxer. Sugar
Ray Leonard?
No, Sugar Patterson.
What?
You remember? This was back in the 40s. Well, I wasn't born in the 40s, but this in the 50s. And they would come for our homecoming parade. They would be special guests. They would be the parade marshals. As kids, it was normal for us. Big bands were playing in the gym because if they played on the beach side, but they couldn't stay on the beach side. We couldn't go to the beach in Daytona when I was a kid.
If you even saying that, so some of you listening right now are like, what? But hey,
listen, my grandmother bought 4.5 miles of beachfront property in New Smyrna so that Black people could have a beach in our area and not have to be uncomfortable, fear arrest, because you're simply trying to relax with your family. And so in New Smyrna, Black people owned beach homes. There was recreation. There was a hotel there, the Wisteria. And all of this is historic. And of course, once my grandmother passed, the county made certain agreements with her that they did not keep, like putting infrastructure in. And because, you know, her strong voice wasn't there to push it and make sure that it was completed, they didn't follow through. And most of that property got downgraded and people got pushed off of it. And now it's, of course, owned by the majority culture.
You know, I was getting ready to ask you, is it now?
Most of it still has her name on it. It's called Bethune Beach, but the look is very different.
That is quite interesting. Tell me about what. So I'm going to ask some more questions, but I want you to tell me about how you came. What is it that you do? Is it, we like to say on the Clubhouse? What look? Who are you? Who do you serve? And how do you serve them?
Well, the people that I serve are faith leaders, because I always want faith leaders to feel that they have someone that they can talk to as well. When you're a faith leader, you carry a lot. You carry your burdens as well as everyone else's. And whether you're working with children, adults in the church, community organizations, leadership has to get shored up. And sometimes we have to get reminded that we're not just grant writers. And my grandmother used to always say, whoever pays the bill is the one who calls the shots. So when we're taking all this government money, we might want to be mindful of who calls the shots, and that some of the things that you may need to do in your community can't be done with federal money. And so I tell them, you need to have a product. Okay, you need to produce something. You need to own some property, because when you own things, the energy is different. When you don't own it, people can take it from you. And so we have to be about the business of teaching our children the value of ownership, keeping their credit good, building relationships. That's how my grandmother was able to do most of the things that she did, because she built strong, powerful relationships, and she didn't compromise in order to do it. She always made sure people understood that she was coming for her people, that she was showing up for her community. And she would say, I don't hate white people, but I do love my Black people. And a lot of times people think that if you love Black people, it means that you hate white folks. That's not the case. But I do want to see my community on equal standing. I don't want it to look different just because I drove across the railroad tracks when I'm paying the same tax dollars. And I think sometimes we forget, and we think that we're supposed to look jacked up. That's not the case. And until we stop accepting second-class citizenship, we'll continue to hold that position. So we have to be about the business of understanding our faith tells me that we're the best of the best. And we have to learn to act like the best of the best, and not like we're dysfunctional. Everybody's dysfunctional at some level, because you live in a crazy world. But it doesn't mean that you have to be crazy. What it means is that you have to claim your space, and you have to stop being afraid to say that's not right, and I'm not taking it anymore. If you bend over, it's easy for people to stand on your back.
Let me tell you something. Julie Robinson says I'm sitting here with my mouth wide open. Dr. Bethune, you are an amazing woman with a wealth, in all capitals, a wealth of history. Let me tell you something. I'm Julie, and that's my Julie Robinson, and Julie is tuned in from Maryland. She posted a few minutes ago. She said tuned in from Maryland. I agree with you, Julie, and I could listen. And I'm sure you're feeling the same way, Julie. I could listen to her all day, and I'm sitting here right now, And I'm saying to myself, wow. Did you have, and I love that your grandmother said, I don't hate white folks, but I do love my black folks.
Right.
I love that. And but so let me ask you this. Did you, and because you were surrounded by a lot of greatness,
Yes.
did you recognize that you were surrounded by all that greatness as it was occurring, or did it occur to you later on after you read the history books, or did you know did you know in the moment, or did it take a little while?
Dr. Stephanie, it's like you know, but you don't know. And I knew that my grandmother was very special because people paid homage to her all the time. And men listened when she talked. And you know, back in the day, when women were speaking, men tuned that out. But when she talked, everybody listened to what she had to say. Even the presidents of the United States. She was an advisor to 4 United States presidents. And she went through the front door of the White House.
Come on now. Let's talk about the front door. And let me ask you this. Where did she get that from?
She got it from her parents. My great-grandfather worked out a deal to purchase my great-grandmother because the people that owned her did not think that slaves should get married. And Samuel McLeod was that man that said, I'm not shacking up. I don't want to shack up. I want to marry this woman. And he worked out a deal with the person that owned him for him to work extra time. Now imagine this. He's already enslaved. He's already at the beck and call of somebody who claims ownership of him. But he still navigates that water to purchase my great-grandmother. And it took him 4 years, but he did it. The first thing that says to me is that, first of all, he loved her a great deal because he didn't have to do that. And then he also managed to keep his family together as much as he could. He always knew where his children were when they were sold away from him, and they experienced that. My grandmother was the 15th of 17 children. And that, her position made her the first child in their family born free. So that means that there were 14 of her brothers and sisters that were also enslaved. Yet my great-grandfather managed to bring all of them back together when Emancipation Proclamation took place. And they came out of it with 5 acres of land. That's amazing to me. That's what she came out of. That's what my grandmother has on her DNA.
I'm sitting here, look, I'm clutching my pearls, and I ain't got none on. So wait a minute, but and my co-chair is in Hope is in North Carolina. She's on right now. She said, "Wow, so much history and knowledge." Hope, I know you are dying. You like, I can't believe I'm missing this interview. Hope, go ahead and drop your questions in the chat, girl. We'll get them up on the screen for you because I know you got some good stuff. But let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, just so much good stuff. One, I just know. Okay? I know that you are in the process of also writing a book.
Yes.
But you've also already written a book, correct?
I have. Yes.
And in the book that you already have, and the one's coming, because we get the series. We get the series when we love something. Is there somewhere that individuals could go now to get some of this history you've been talking about? Because I'm going to tell you right now, don't know, we know about Mary McLeod Bethune, but we clearly don't know everything. And for my Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated sorors that are chiming in, know that Dr. Evelyn Bethune is a soror.
Listen, we grew up, let me make you laugh, in my grandmother's yard. And when we were kids, there were these 3 huge elephants. One was so big, I mean, we literally could stand underneath it. And then there were 2 babies. And these were in her yard. I have pictures of them somewhere, and when I find it, I'm going to send it to you. So we grew up, of course, in love with elephants because my grandmother loved elephants. And she always said she loved elephants because they were familiar. They loved their families. They were steadfast and unmovable. And they were dedicated to each other. And that's the way we should be, that they had strong community. And so what they did was they talked about why she had these elephants. And the Delta said, well, don't you know? She's a Delta.
And that, my friends, is the benediction. Let me tell you that I love it. That, every time, of course, every time I'm somewhere, someone's like, that's a lot of red in the background, or elephants back there, or I wear my I have elephant little chain.
Yes.
They're like, you have elephants, and look, I got elephant earrings on right now. And
I have some laying on my dresser, and someone just gave me a pair. My pastor went to, he's from Senegal, and he came back and he said, I know how you love elephants, so here.
Yes, man. Let me tell you something. So, but because I'm just imagining you, and okay, so first of all, I'm loving the fact that some elephants so big, they're so huge that you can stand under
as children. I'm telling you, and the kids from the neighborhood, that's what we played there. It was like we had our own jungle area, with these elephants in it. And because we were on a college campus, we were always aware of pledge season. So, my brothers used to walk behind the Deltas because they used to carry the ducks and quacks. Yeah. They would when they were little, they were like 7, 8 years old. That was their fun time during pledge season.
And I can't even imagine, because now you have all these grand people coming to your house, and your dad was the only child of?
Yes.
Wow. Now, how many siblings do you have? I
have 5. There were 5 of us. There are 3 still living. My oldest brother was actually 32 years older than me.
30? Wait a minute now. Daddy, what? 32?
I used to laugh. I said, yeah, I know I tricked you. You thought you were going to be an only child for like 30-something years. And then here I come. Here I come.
And then it kept coming after that.
Yes, because after me, there are twins and my baby sister.
Twins? I know y'all said, wait a minute now. What? Wait a minute. So were there 3 boys and 2 girls?
Yes.
What?
And both my brothers, the twins, went in the Marine Corps. That was their way of getting out of Daytona. As soon as they graduated from high school, they went to the Marine Corps.
So we're all, and boys for that. So Bethunes. So yes. So let's talk about this. So all your life, you were Mary McLeod Bethune's granddaughter.
And in Daytona, when we go home, it's still Dr. Bethune's grandchildren. And we grew up, people know us, but they know us as Dr. Bethune's grandchildren. And that will be our title into infamy. Okay.
But not only that, the name is so right that I bet you get it even when people don't know before you even say it. Any relation?
All the time.
And
my daughters always say, Mom, if we had $1 for every time somebody asked us that question.
Oh my gosh. So I'm imagining you. Okay, so I used to just hate telling people that I'm a police officer, because after I said that, what happened?
They kind of shut down.
Yep, and they got to tell me the story of a terrible experience they had, and so almost every time I had to hear about a traffic stop, I all of a sudden I tell them I'm a police officer, but they say I must be like they think I'm an attorney, because I started getting all these legal questions. Mm-hmm. Okay. And now, and they're always taken back because I don't make any excuses for bad behavior. Never have, never will.
Thank you. And that's the way it should be.
And so so the conversation becomes really a wealthy and real good conversation. But it's like, God dang it. Now, of course, I got tons of men that just throw themselves up against the wall. Lock me up. I was like, come on, that's just played out.
So can you just stop?
Stop with that. But I'm just... But I mean, so I get that. But then once you say, any relation, well, actually, that's my grandmother. Oh, that's just a whole nother conversation.
It takes a whole different direction. It really does. And it's always been that way. And sometimes it's punitive because there are times when people make assumptions as well. They make assumptions that we are stuck up. And most of the time, I am a very quiet person. I don't, put ripples in the brook unless you get in my brook. And then it's a different role. And so people assume that because I'm not talking, that I'm not engaging. I'm always listening. I hear everything. And so I have to sometimes tell people, Mary McLeod Bethune was my grandmother, but she was also a woman of God, a woman of faith. And so that also has certain requirements. I love human beings. I don't like foolishness. And so if you're going to be stupid, then that's a whole nother conversation for us. But if you're going to be a human being who honors our faith and honors the way that God intended for us to be, then we're good.
What is something? So I'm just trying to imagine, because tell me something that I would tell us something like like grandmother. Like what kind of person? Okay, what kind of person was she? Was she okay? Was she?
I remember her as
like,
an incredible grandmother. I used to hide under her desk. That was my spot. Because she had this huge wooden desk and there was always space under it for me. She would sit in such a way that I could get under there. And I would sit, I would read, because I was reading it too. I hung out, my spot was the library. And my oldest brother was the librarian, and that was my way of hanging out around him. And people thought he was my dad because he was so much older than me. But I used to call him brother, and they would say, "Why does she call you brother?" He said, "Because that's my baby sister."
Did you? And you're okay. So your oldest brother's 32 years older, but everybody else was kind of like stair steps. So you all kind of grew.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I was born in 52. Then my twin brothers in 56, and my baby sister in 63.
What was it like for you? Well, I got two questions. You growing up and in that environment, did you experience racism?
Absolutely, but not in our area. See, the beauty of my growing up, that we went to segregated schools up until I got to junior high school. And that was the year that the state of Florida decided on freedom of choice. And so a group of parents got together and decided what little Black kids were going to go to integrate the school system in Volusia County, which was our county. And of course, we were the top students. So that's where we went. We went to Mainland Junior High School, and it was horrific. Because I tell people, y'all think of the world's most famous beach, but understand Florida is still in the South. And it is still, to this day, a very racist and a very segregated type of state. And if you don't believe it, look at the governor. Okay, a lot of things that he's doing are race-based. To tell people that you can't teach history because it might upset somebody, that's insanity.
Evelyn, we lost you. Okay, then we'll be back. Okay.
But we have a governor in Florida that doesn't believe that you should talk about race in the classroom or teach history that might upset white people. That's insanity. You can't talk about racial issues without somebody getting upset. His position, of course, is that it's okay for Black people to be upset. Just don't upset his white folks, which is crazy. But I grew up in a very segregated South. And that was when I started to really understand who my grandmother was, because I started to look more closely at some of the things that she had done, and what we were standing on as it related to her accomplishments.
And
And that gave me strength as a kid to deal with being called the N-word on a daily basis, being almost pushed down flights of stairs, shoved in the lockers, in school systems where there were no Black administrators, no Black teachers. There was nobody for the Black kids to go to.
and I would imagine because of what who your grandmother was.
It was always
In some communities, they were very proud of you.
absolutely.
And then the other communities, it angered them.
Very much so. And it angered them because in our community, we had tennis courts because she built tennis courts on the campus of Bethune-Cookman. We couldn't go to city tennis courts. We couldn't go to the pool. So she made them build a pool in our neighborhood because she navigated those waters with city, county, state. My grandmother brought public housing to Volusia County because of her relationship with the Roosevelts. And that housing didn't just benefit Black people, that benefited the entire county, and white people included. And sometimes they forget that when they talk about the things that she did. I said, but understand, she wasn't just bringing public housing to my side of the railroad tracks. They built public housing. In fact, the first public housing was built in the white community.
This is powerful. So this is what, let me tell you, look at it's already 7:26. This is how you know it's juicy. This is how you know it's juicy. I want you to do two things. Are you able to type into the chat so I can post it? And I'm gonna share it out. I want to tell them how they can get your book, how they can connect with you. Now they have right there. You can see your Instagram. It's at the bottom. It's the ticker. It has Instagram right there. But I know you all, just like me, want to get more information. You want to read more. You want to learn more. I love to read, and I think it's important that we understand that our history. You know, that we've heard it said that if we don't know where we came from, we're doomed to repeat it again.
Absolutely.
And again and again. And so who knew? We knew part of the story, but we didn't know the rest of it.
And that is part of what, I talk about, that it's critical for us to know the greatness that's in our history and the greatness on our DNA. Because when we understand the strength that we're connected to, it changes the trajectory of who we think we are. Our history didn't start on a plantation. And our accomplishments are globally great. When we know that part, people can't tell us that we're less than. They can't tell us that we're not capable. We can't tell our children math and science is hard. It's not hard. What does Spalding say? It's just new. We built the pyramids. How can it be hard? But if we don't know that, people can define us based on their sense of who they think we are. And just because somebody calls you something doesn't mean you have to answer to it.
Dr. Evelyn, look at the Tara. I was getting ready to say, y'all listen, come on here right now and give Dr. Evelyn her roses. Give them to her now. Let me tell you something. You all drop your emojis in right now. I want to see those emojis. I want to see them. I want you to let Dr. Evelyn know one of your takeaways right now. I need to see it because that is, it's just powerful. I'm right now, research people. We are going to do better. We are going to do better. We are not going to be running around waiting for somebody else to tell us. As a matter of fact, I had I'll put the wrong one in here. Hold on. I had a librarian.
Mm-hmm.
She told me, Stephanie, when you want to know about another country, I want you not to go and read it in any
No.
book in the United States.
Because it will always be skewed to the wrong place.
That's the exact. She said, I want you to go to the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? She was like, go.
Yes, ma'am. I tell you, our perception of the continent of Africa is so twisted. People get there and they're awestruck. Absolutely awestruck. And then, all they want to say is, the villages are this, the villages. I said, listen, we have villages in the United States. Okay. So if you think that poverty is just outside of the United States, you obviously haven't been down the street. They have cities, big cities that put ours to shame. But we don't know that. We don't know that Lagos is one of the largest cities in the world.
Well, when I learned that Colombia had the better healthcare than us, I was like,
yes, ma'am.
We run right here. They treat towns like Colombia, some whatever they're trying to say it is. It had a better healthcare system than
yes, ma'am.
us.
Yes. Americans
Denmark,
will have you to think that we got it all together, and we've spent more time fighting and paying, mega millions to people that don't deserve it and forget why they're sitting in the chair. We elect people who go to office and then use that position to become millionaires and billionaires and get out and do absolutely nothing for the people that elected them, black or white, brown, yellow, nobody. Because all they're doing is being self-serving.
Ooh.
And we're starting to say it's okay for them to do that.
Well, you all look, ooh, okay, well, women, we got to go. Dr. Evelyn, it's 7:31. You and I got to go. Oh, I heard. All right, so this is what we're going to do, y'all. Dr. Evelyn is going to say the final word, and then we're going to say farewell. And we got to bring them back. We ain't finished talking. We're not finished talking. We got questions. All right, y'all, keep on giving the love. Keep giving the love.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and spend time with you. I really appreciate it. And contact me, reach out, email me, and I'll let you know about the book. The book is on Amazon. It's called Bethune, Out of Darkness into the Light of Freedom.
All right, y'all. We'll see you same place, same time, same channel next week. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
See y'all. Bye.